Wasted food is a big problem. Every year we waste 1.6 billion tons of food globally. But with every bite we don't eat, we're not just discarding food. We're also wasting the land, water, and energy resources that went into producing it. Today, wasted food has become an international humanitarian and ecological crisis, making headlines all over the world. But what does this have anything to do with endangered trout? Steelhead trout, a once abundant species native to Monterey Bay, California, virtually disappeared in the last 50 years. Populations declined as much as 90%, and it quickly became protected under the Endangered Species Act. Conservation ecologists initially believed that the trout were threatened by the San Clemente Dam, which prevented the adults from reaching their breeding ground, and so in 2015, the dam was removed. The dam's demolition was the largest dam removal project in California's history, and was considered a monumental victory for conservationists. However, it did not create the rebound effect that scientists had predicted. A group of UC Santa Cruz researchers began to investigate, and later that year they published a study that demonstrated a negative correlation between the population of steelheads and one of their natural predators, the western gull. Before wasted food became abundant in the ecosystem, the populations of western gulls and steelhead trout kept each other in check and remained at about the same level over time, despite periodic fluctuations. This type of relationship is what ecologists call a negative feedback loop. Whenever trout were plentiful, the western gull population would gorge itself and grow in size until it began to eat fish faster than they could reproduce. The decreasing fish caused a scarcity of prey for gulls, which pushed their numbers back down. And once there were fewer gulls around to eat them, the predation pressure decreased on the trout, and the population would rebound. This meant that prey for gulls became plentiful again, and the cycle would restart. Interspecies relationships like this are everywhere in nature, and they tend to keep populations relatively stable over time. But environmental changes can tilt the scales in the favor of one organism, and cause the entire loop to collapse. Western gulls are a generalist species, which means that they take advantage of many different resources and readily adapt to the changes in their environment. And as modern cities developed, they began to generate an abundance of organic waste for the birds to eat. Once gulls were able to lean on the resources that dumps and fisheries provided them, their population was no longer limited by the population of steelhead trout. Today, western gulls eat 3 times the anthropogenic resources as historic gulls, and their population has grown 2 to 4 times what it was before. While the average gull is eating less fish than before, their numbers have completely overwhelmed the steelhead trout population, pushing them to the edge of extinction. And steelhead are not alone. Many species around the world are threatened by human-provided subsidies to their predators or competitors. Millions of birds and other opportunistic creatures have become dependent on landfills and discarded bycatch, reshaping ecosystems to center around human waste. Other coastal cities that experience this issue have attempted to address it by closing dumps and temporarily banning trawling techniques for fishing that discards 7 million tons of bycatch every year. The most potent legislation right now is the European Union's ban on fishery discards, which will require fisheries to bring all bycatch ashore instead of dumping it back into the ocean for opportunistic animals to scavenge. And while the EU intends to protect threatened and endangered species, there are legitimate concerns that this law may actually compound the damage that commercial fishing already inflicts on sea life by completely removing the energy stored in bycatch and decreasing the resilience of the ecosystem. Unfortunately, no one knows how to reverse the effects of decades of human exploitation and generations of seabirds that rely on wasted food for survival.